your boss, your child, who is the most influential and the very best communicator you know, because that's who we are going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the people in your life who have different communication styles. Mercury and the sign in which you have Mercury in your chart is really important. But why is it important? And this is going to be different than most Mercury videos that you have watched, the astrological meanings and definitions of Mercury. And I hope so much that you have watched my entire Mercury playlist. I'm going to talk about Mercury through all 12 signs, but I don't want you to just watch your own Mercury sign. I want you to think about the people in the world that are phenomenal communicators, somebody who you wish you could be like, and then I want you to go look up their Mercury. Then I want you to watch this video and watch me talk about or define what it means to have Mercury in that sign or in those signs. It could really have a giant impact, not only on you, but on your understanding of the power of astrology. Because here's the deal. If I'm a fascinating person, but I have no way to get that fascinating part of me out because I can't express myself, then I'm sort of trapped within myself, right? And some signs struggle with communicating more so than others. And what if you could be a catalyst for helping a person understand themselves better just by understanding Mercury through the signs? And why does somebody just bore the living daylights out of you, right? Well, watch this video and you will find out. I'm going to tell you all the secrets and all the truths of all 12 signs in Mercury, and it's going to be fascinating. You know, a lot of people ask me, do I have a soulmate connection with this person? And they want me to look at their Mars or their Venus. And honestly, I really wonder and I question why more astrologers don't look at the two Mercuries inside the two different natal charts. Because if you have Mercury in Aquarius and your partner has Mercury in Taurus, oh my God, how are you guys going to ever communicate with one another, especially if you don't understand why they speak and why they think like they do. So this video is going to help you so much in the art and in the arena of understanding why and how people communicate the way they do. So let's dive in. Mercury is so important in your chart because it shows you what you love to think about, what turns on your mind, and how you speak and how you use your voice, how your mind works, how you communicate, how you express yourself, how you learn and how you teach, and how you actually grow that big brain of yours. What nourishes your mind, right? So right now you're actually hearing my Mercury. Yeah, Mercury is going to show you your anxiety levels. It's going to show you your lungs and your breathing. Do you suffer from asthma? That is also your Mercury. It's going to show us your nervous system responses and sort of your verbal temperament. And it's also going to reveal your psychological issues, your speech impediments, if you have ADD, and any ailments that you might have to the hands, the arms, and the shoulders. So I really do recommend that you watch all the signs, because it's not just important to know who you are, it's also important to know who you are not and what you are not, and how other people hear you and receive you. And if I can communicate more effectively, basically if I can manipulate my Mercury, I can be more effective and successful in my relationships and in my work. I can be more self-assured that what I am trying to say and what is really inside of me can be expressed effectively. So let's talk about Mercury in Aries. Mercury in Aries, you know, these people love passionate, feisty discussions, and they are not offended by kind of a hard-hitting, competitive, good argument. They require quick thinking. They get bored with you really, really fast. And they're good at giving spontaneous thoughts and opinions and thinking fast on their feet. They talk fast, they think fast, and they solve problems really, really fast. They have a very quick response time, and they are very direct, articulate. They're super open. They're honest. They're the ones that say, yeah, ask me anything. I'm an open book. Ask me anything. They hate lying and they hate cheating because they don't want to have to remember all their lies. And by the way, they're really bad at it. They are probably the worst liars of the zodiac. They catch themselves in a fib and then they can't remember it. And then they're like, oh shit, actually that wasn't really true. They also can confess if they fibbed or lied or if they don't really know. Like, I don't really know. I'm not an expert on that, but what my opinion is, I find talking to a Mercury in Aries person very refreshing. They are very bottom line. They are very direct. They usually take a dominant position in the conversation and they like to dominate. They usually land louder, stronger, more opinion than the other person in the dialogue. And they have sort of a desire to lead the conversation. And while they can be a good listener, I think they are a better talker than listener, just to be honest. And they are a good listener, especially if they are a Taurus or a Pisces with Mercury in Aries. But most Aries prefer just making their point and talking more than listening, just to be very honest about it. I think Eddie Murphy is a great example of Mercury in Aries. He is just fast. He's fun to listen to. Also, Mercury in Aries are very entertaining and they're funny because they just tell you the cold, hard, ugly truth. I think Mercury in Aries is kind of like the person from New Jersey. It's like, hey, what you talking about? It's like the New Yorker. It's just like, don't beat around the bush. I don't have time to say thanks and how you doing and how's your family and how's your life. No, just give me some pizza. Yeah, extra cheese. Thanks. See ya. They're just kind of fun. And they also have like super strong opinions. They are like committed to their preferences and their opinions and their beliefs and their thoughts. Now, on the shadow side, they can have real sarcasm for humor and they can be cynical and sarcastic. And at times, I will also say they can be really blunt and too direct and their words can cut more than they intended to. They don't really mean to hurt your feelings. They're just so sorry if you can't handle the truth. They probably cannot handle like an entitled mentality. They can deal with a lot and they have really thick skin and they don't want you to beat around the bush. They think everybody thinks like this and we don't. And truth, this is like the least sensitive communication sign. So they usually have to learn how to stop, pause, and think, to slow down their minds enough to really be thoughtful around your overly sensitive feelings. And they don't have a lot of patience for really super sensitive people. They don't really want to learn a new way to communicate. It's like, God, I got to remember they and them, and I just want to say he and she. I don't want a bunch of new stuff to learn. And on the shadow side, they can kind of come across as very impatient, very opinionated, kind of thoughtless, kind of gruff and rough around the edges. And they can kind of feel like a verbal slap across your face or like a cold shower. They kind of have a style that just wakes you up. They can be loud and at their worst, they can be really self-focused and selfish. They like to think about their passions, their adventures, their next competition, how to win at the game of life and love, how to level up, how to play bigger, how to expand their worlds. And they know their preferences. They absolutely know what they want, what they like, what they don't like, and they don't like playing games. And they are usually really invigorating to listen to. Okay. Mercury in Taurus, very interesting. Johnny Depp has this placement, even though he is a Gemini. And you can see him in almost everything he does. There is a slow calculatedness. And if you did see the trial or if you saw him on the stand, he is extraordinarily methodical, poetic, and slow. Remember, Venus rules this sign. So there is something quite beautiful, usually beautiful sounding about this particular voice. This is a very down-to-earth placement. And this, I would say, is like the patient, the methodical listener. They pride themselves on their stable, common sense. And these communicators are slower to find their words. They're usually looking for the right word, looking for the word that will invoke the feeling or the thought that they want to communicate. And so you need to be a little bit patient listening to these people. They speak their words with great deliberation, and they like to thoroughly evaluate their thoughts in their heads before they speak their minds. And they're logical, they're focused, and they are quite perceptive. These communicators, I would say, are realists. They like to think about how to earn money, how to make it or investment. They like to think about security, building more of it in the world and being secure. They like thinking about food, making it, eating it, getting it, presenting it. They like thinking about nature. They like learning and thinking and talking about what creates more comfort and peace and harmony in my world, in my life, and in the world at large. They oftentimes, these people will chase comfort, being comfortable, and they put their time into creating comfort for themselves and for others. They don't like uncomfortable conversations. They usually have very good boundaries. It's very rare for a Taurus to just be nosy and probe into all of your dirty details. They're not gossips like that. They don't really want to waste their time with that. That's uncomfortable for them. These people often think about the material world, the concrete world, and how to navigate through it. Like, if you can touch it, let's talk about it. And they usually have a practical, intelligent, mastering pragmatics more than the abstract thought. They like the tried and true concepts, and they learn by trial and error. They are nostalgic, and they are loyal to their beliefs and their opinions. And they don't usually change up their stories or their minds very easily. They're kind of stubborn. They're not usually in favor of versatility. They figure out what works, and they stick with that thing that works, that methodology, that style, and they stick with it over and over and over. And on the shadow side, they can be like fairly hard to deal with because they are so stubbornly fixed in their opinions that they become kind of narrow-minded and dogmatic and immovable. Imagine trying to push a bull, right? Like push a bull into the barn. Like, come on, let's go into the barn. No, 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 no. It can be a really hard job trying to get a Taurus to change their mind. Yeah. Have you ever tried to get a Taurus to change their mind? So you need to know if your partner has a Taurus and Mercury, because if you want them to change, you're going to have to start drip, 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 like Chinese water torture, months in advance, convincing them through pragmatic details on why it is going to benefit them and be more comfortable for them to change. That's how you convince a Taurus. Because at their very worst, they are super closed off to new ideas or thoughts. And quite frankly, they don't want to change their mind. They don't. So let's talk about when Mercury is in Gemini. This is in its dignity, and Mercury loves being in Gemini because Gemini is ruled by Mercury. So this makes for very smart, quick thinkers. These people are, I would say, the master communicators, and they have a gift for gab. They can talk about anything, anywhere, anytime. Yeah. If you want to kill a Mercury in Gemini, tell them that the rule is they're not allowed to talk for 1 hour. They can't do it. Joan Rivers, actually, I don't know if you guys know her, but she's probably like the first female comedian in the United States that really hit it big and became quite famous. And she had a very acerbic wit, and she was quite fast on her feet. Marilyn Monroe also has this placement, and she was also known to be very witty, and she played a dumb blonde, but that was just her persona. She was actually quite intelligent and quite witty. You know, this is the smart, quick, fast on your feet thinker. These people are master communicators, as I said, and they are fantastic at arguing data points spontaneously. They're great debaters. They're usually very highly intelligent people. Meryl Streep also has this, and they value knowledge. They value learning. These people can be very quick-witted, very funny. They can do deadpan humor, and they know how to play ping pong with words, with people, so they can bounce ideas back and forth. They're very invigorating and exhilarating. They just don't need a lot of time to figure out their thoughts or what to say. They usually can keep the conversation flowing, even if you're not that great of a communicator. And some of these people have photographic memories. I'll say that they're really good with puns. They're really good with telling jokes, remembering jokes, and they're really good at double entendres, double meanings. When the person who was giving Marilyn Monroe her interview and they asked her, what's your favorite thing to wear to bed? And she said, Chanel number 5. You know, it's like, and then somebody said to her, so what do you have on when you go to bed? And she said, the radio. She's just so funny. And it's just kind of hilarious. So like double entendres, and they're good at memorizing details. And these people are so open-minded. I think this is the most open-minded person of the zodiac. And they're very objective. They make great negotiators and mediators because they can be a bridge between two sides. They can see both sides usually, and they're very flexible, very nimble, very versatile. And these people are super curious about life and people, and they're multifaceted. They can deal with complex ideas. They have this quick intellect, and they're very knowledgeable, a super sharp mind, and they're kind of like newscaster articulate, right? They usually have really good enunciation, and they value the voice, and they have this bright energy, the snap, crackle, pop about them. A lot of these people with Mercury and Gemini are brilliant. So on the shadow side, these like cool cats can be so overly talkative, they can drive you nuts. So yeah. And especially if they're like Gemini rising with Mercury and Gemini, these people will not shut up. And they won't take a breath. They don't breathe in between their words, and they can just exhaust you, throwing so much conversation at you. It's like, they're just very high strung, very talkative. They can also be super distracted and detached from a depth of emotion or wanting even a depth of conversation. They're great at bite-sized pieces, sometimes, and their communication style can just be so, blazing saddles that you feel like there's a lack of emotional connection or even connection. It's like they don't always feel their words, even if they're just saying their words. At their very worst, they can seem vacant and talking out of both sides of their mouths. They can be duplicitous. They can stab you in the back. They can be too rash, and they can flip-flop their opinions. They also can, on their shadow side, they can have a tendency, not everybody, they can have a tendency to fib very easily. And they over-process everything, exhausting even themselves. Okay, so Mercury in Cancer. This is a very unique style of communication. This is the imaginary, intuitive thinker. These people need to express their feelings, and they need to trust in order to be able to do that. These are the good listeners of the zodiac, and these people are better listeners than talkers, and they're super sensitive to other people's needs. And they do get overwhelmed, though, with other people's energy and problems, so they need a cocoon to sort of recharge their batteries. These people, when they're well developed, they sort of have a poetry in their soul, and they are very empathetic speakers and listeners, so they'll follow your pace. They don't want to overshadow you, but they also don't want to be under. They kind of like are your match. They'll intuitively dance with you. You sort of feel like you're doing the tango when you're talking to these people, and they make you feel comfortable. It's like they can move you, they can stir you, and everybody can be really emotionally captivated by their stories because their stories have a lot of emotion in them. They're poetic. And so when they're telling a story, it's like everybody is just dead silent, wanting to hold their breath until we get to the end.
Schedule doctor's appointment, turned in expenses, hit the gym.